Hello there. In this video, we're going to look at implementing a modal dialog that will pop up with an editable grid. In this case, it'll be an editable grid of employees. And what we want to do is change the default behavior, which is to auto generate the new screen, and we're going to replace that with our own screen. So we're going to create our own screen, and then we're going to make that one also modal, such that when you hit add in the modal screen for employees, the grid, it will open up a modal screen for the new employee. So what we're going to do right now is just take a look at the default behavior, and then we'll review how it changes, or the changes that we'll make. Okay, so if we open up the screen, we can see that this screen has been modeled to be a modal screen, and it's here where if I was to hit this, I would get the screen, the auto-generated screen, to add a new employee. But in fact, what we want to do is we want to put a custom screen in there, which is also modal. And so let's see how to do that. All right, well, the first thing we want to do is let's go over to our Solution Explorer, and let's flip it from our file view to our logical view. And in fact, that's what it was already in. And then we'll go to our screens, and we'll just create a new screen. And in this case here, since this is an employee, we're going to create a new data screen, and the screen data will be based on employee. And you can choose to include other additional data. In this case, we're just going to go with the defaults. And so nothing too fancy here. Comes up with the create new employee screen. So we can just close this, save that off. And if we go back to our Solution Explorer, what we want to do is we want to so when we create this new employee, it's automatically going to be added to the default navigation group, which in this case is the task navigation group. And we really don't need to see that, so we're going to remove that from there. And so we simply right-click on Screens, Edit Navigation. And what we'll see here is that the Create New Employee is actually part of that nav menu. So there it is. So we don't need that. We just delete that. So when we delete it, from a modeling perspective, and if we were to right-click and refresh LightSwitch model at this point, it would commit new updates. And you'll see that this Create New Employee screen ends up being part of the what we call the unmapped set of screens. So if you look here, we have this unmapped screens area. And what we want to do is, in fact, we're going to change this. So instead of it being a window, what we want it to do is open it up as a modal screen. So that's pretty easy to do. We just simply take one of these controls and throw it down. And we can get rid of this create new because we're actually going to replace it with a modal screen. So we'll call this one Create New Employee. And just pull it over like so. In fact, we can tuck that, we don't really need it. So this view container would probably be better served with the add button. So we'll wire that in as well. And so we'll just zoom out a little bit here so we get a little more real estate, and let's just minimize a few of these screens. So we're just dealing with the one that we want, which is the Create New Employee. We'll zoom back in a little bit. There we go. All right, and so let's first of all let's link our our Create New Employee. So now what we've done is we've basically taken this unmapped screen. In other words, unmapped meaning it doesn't show up in the navigation group anywhere. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to launch the screen from within the grid itself. So that's how that screen is going to come up. But what we do want is we want these nav buttons down here to actually show up in the view container for the Create New Employee. So That's pretty easily accomplished. All we need to do is simply go to the properties of these buttons, and let's just change that right now. So it's already set up, but right now you can see that this is navigation container command is set to true, and we don't want that. We want that to false. And instead what we want is a view command to be set to true. So that, again, these are the save and refresh buttons that we want to tie. And we would do the same thing for the refresh button, set it to be there. And so now those buttons will actually show up. In fact, we might as well do that on our employee screen since we didn't do that earlier, so that we have those also surfacing there. And we're going to change a few things here because this is Modal. It makes no sense that we actually render the Modal screen with the command, so we'll take those off as well, and we'll make them part of that scenario as well. So it's the same sort of approach. Whoops, I got that one. It already was set. There we go. So there we go. We got our refresh button now, and our refresh and our save button wired into this Prism region right here, which is part of the view container for this modal dialog. So the hope is that now when this pops up, we'll see those two buttons, and likewise, when we launch the Create New Employee, we'll see those two new buttons as well. All right, and ideally, we'd probably want to put a close screen on this a close screen button, which is pretty easily done. You can just add it as a command to your screen itself. All right, so now that we have that, the last part of this, the last step we need to make is we need to actually initiate this create new from the editable grid. And so to do that, it's pretty simple. We just go back to our employee editable grid. Now previously we actually had an override on here, but in a subsequent setting up of this demo, it was removed. But I'll show you how it would have looked, and then the procedures to add the Create New Employee screen is identical. All right. So, for example, edit, you can see it has this override code. If I go add, it's actually been already overridden. However, it's not there, so we'll just edit the execute code. And so what we want to do is we want to put in the application dot current dot, and in this case here, we are going to type show create new employee. And since there's no parameters, we don't have to pass a parameter. It's just all you need. Okay, so when you go to create a new employee, it should show up. It should probably just return, let's see, result equals true. I think, not sure if you really need to do that because I think it comes in as true. All right, so let's save this and let's see what happens. All right, so now we see the same screen as we saw before, but this time when we select employees, the big difference is that we see these commands now being surfaced directly within the view, which makes a lot more sense because since it's modal, you wouldn't be able to refresh. So for instance, if I was to change, let's see, Andrew, and maybe put an S after his first name, then I could hit refresh and I could discard that change or save that change. So that's kind of nice. But what we really wanted to demonstrate is that if I added a new employee, so now you'll notice here when I hit plus, up should pop another screen, and it is also a modal screen. Now the way it's popping up and where it's popping up, I'm not sure. I really like it the way it is. So maybe what we want to do is we want to, give it a bit more width, something like this, and center it into the center of the screen. But basically, if I was to type in Smith Dave and hit save, it would save it. Now the interesting thing here is that when you save this, just like any other LightSwitch screen, the create screen, it'll automatically create an edit screen underneath. So. But in this case here, So you can see here that's what it's done. It's created the edit version of the screen. We can turn off that behavior because we probably don't want that. But if you were to refresh the screen here, you would note that Smith Dave is now in this list, and you're good to go. So that's that list. Now, of course, we probably want this list to auto refresh, so we're gonna wire that in. So let's fix the modal screen and wire that auto refresh in first. So we'll close this down. All right, we're back into the screen. There's a couple of other things that we should probably take care of while we're here. So let's go into create new employee. So we actually don't want it to open up an edit screen after it creates the new employee. We just want it to create the new employee, and everything from that point on would be complete in this scenario at least. So if we look at the create new employee, we actually click on the right code. We can see here that after it saves, it automatically attempts to show the default screen for the employee itself, which in this case we're not really interested in. So let's just comment that out so that we don't have that anymore. So that's good. And we actually do want it to close on save, so let's just change that to true. So that'll auto close that screen when we hit save, which is good. So that takes care of that. So now if we go back to our model, for example, and what we want to do is, as you remember, from our unmapped screens, we have our create new employee. We wanted to center that screen, so let's do that. And so if we look here, it is create new employee. Initialization mode, startup location needs to be center of screen. Sound good? And then what we'll do is give it a width of, let's say, 400 and height of, let's say, 600. Because it's a tall screen. It needs to be a bit wider. And I think that's what we pretty much want there. That's great. So we'll save that. And okay. And so the last thing we wanted to do in this part was to we'll just zoom out a little bit. And what we want to do is we've got this employee screen. We zoomed out a little too far here. And what we want to do is that when this create new closes, we want to refresh this this view over here. So to do that, we'll take the link tool and we just link the two view containers together. And what you'll see here is that you get this set of properties that you can change. So we actually don't want to close anything on our parent, but what we do want to do is we do want to ensure that one way on this, that we refresh after. So basically, when the screen closes, it will send a message to this screen to refresh. In other words, when we save, it should close the screen. So let's take a look and see what kind of damage we've done here. All right. So with the screen open now, let's go through the same scenario. So we'll open up the employee screen. Should raise the modal dialog. Okay, great. And now let's add a new employee. And it pops a second dialog. And so let's just put in a, I'll give myself a chance here. So Alan, oops, first name is, last name is Edward, Alan, and so forth. And now you'll notice here when I hit save, it'll save the screen, it'll close the screen, and it'll then refresh the screen here. There you go. And now, of course, the last name needs to be sorted here. So if we look, we can see there's Edwards. And we'll just get rid of some of these other guys in here. And save. So there you go. So now, if you wanted to add and then come back to the item itself, what you would need to do is to use some interview messaging to basically pass back the value that was selected, or let's just say the ID that was generated on save. And so that's something that you can do. We have other videos that show you how to do that and how to pass back a message back to a calling screen, which would be a great example in this scenario here to be able to do that. So so that's how you can actually control a modal within a modal to generate a editable screen. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Thanks. Bye-bye.